Welcome back to another episode of the Blacktop podcast, y'all. I'm here with my boys, Christian and Ruben. I'm kind of not really a host because, we're all hosts here, but I'm DJ. And man, the regular season is really winding down. I think there's probably a week or so left of games, and then we got the play in. And shoot, I don't know about y'all. I like that. I like the addition of the play in because it makes these last games so much more impactful, but I kind of just want to get to the postseason. With that being said, though, this is not going to be our kind of playoff predictions episode just because, we don't want to do that, especially considering how tight the East is. We don't want to make our predictions now, and then that's not even the final tally. So, with that being said, we're probably just going to wait till the end of the play-in so we can give you our actual, 1-8 matchups, all that stuff. So, be on the lookout for that. With that being said, though, here's how today's episode is going to run. So, we are going to actually not do the Blacktop Showdown today just because some of us are still in school, aka Christian and I, Ruben's out there adulting. With that being said, we got a little announcement for y'all. So, just as a nice little, little side dish, a little appetizo, if you will, we're going to be doing a few full dedicated to the Blacktop Showdowns. So, if you were here for the first couple episodes, you'll know that it wasn't just the one-on-one-on-ones. We also had at the end where you took your three, and it was a 3-on-3 versus everybody's 3-on-3, and you had to make your case. We haven't done that in the last little bit, but with these nice little one-off episodes, or not even necessarily one-off, but you know what I mean, these separate episodes, yeah, we're going to get back to that, the heart of the Blacktop Showdown, so I'm super excited. But with that being said, boys, how we doing?
Oh man, I'm doing fantastic today, man. I'm doing all right today. You know why?
Why's
Y'all
that,
know
man?
why.
Why's that?
My boy Freddie Van Vliet right here hit the clutch three to clinch another postseason appearance for the Toronto Raptors, and Cleveland is back in the goddamn play-in, and the Hawks are in the play-in. So sweet music for me today. Nothing can ruin the rest of this evening. So I'm good, man. Chin,
Okay.
how about you, bro?
I am doing all right, man. I mean, the Celtics are second in the East, all things considered, with Robert Williams out. So things are looking hopeful, you know?
All right, speaking about things we're hopeful with, you guys know how we always start every episode. It is our takes of the day. So, do any of y'all want to volunteer to go first? Or, I can start it off. How we feeling here?
I don't know. Do you? I know. DJ has one cooking up, bro.
All right, all
He's like,
right.
I can start it off. He's got one
I
already. I
got
know
one.
it.
This one goes out to, the real ballers, the street ballers. So, my take of the day is Jamal Crawford would have been a superstar if he played today. Now, you all know Jamal Crawford for the guy who just retired and everybody gave him flowers, but do y'all know why? If you're new to basketball. Let me tell y'all this. Jamal Crawford is one of the purest hoopers to ever step on the hardwood. This is a guy who has a bag that's like unmatched. And with that, he himself said he didn't even show out his best stuff. So I think in a basketball world today, where there's a lot of isolations, a lot of give your best ball handler the ball and let him go to work. Whereas Jamal Crawford probably came in on the tail end of that when that was starting to become a thing. But at his prime, when he was like at his best and his like most athletic, the game was still very, I think, structured in the sense that not necessarily you feed the post because he was kind of on the tail end of that too, but he was also on the end where you weren't necessarily giving a guy the ball and letting him dribble 20 times to get one bucket. Now, if you throw him in today's world, Jamal Crawford's a bigger Kyrie Irving, in my opinion. But yeah, that's my take. Jamal Crawford. Happy retirement, bro. Cancun on 3.
Damn. I think Jamal Crawford would have been a huge beneficiary to the rules, even though he did sort of play like he did transition later on to like the later style tiki tack stuff. But if he were to play in today's game, like if we got prime Jamal Crawford like right now, I could see him being a perennial all star. I don't know about superstar because the other side of the game is like a lot of these guys have the ability to play make and create shots for others, and Jamal Crawford also historically hasn't been known to be that kind of guy. But I could see where he is a perennial All Star player, where he's sort of in that like, um, I yeah, I think he's a guy who could have made like a couple All Star teams for sure. I don't know about superstar though.
Yeah, I think I agree with Ruben to a T. Well, not to a T, but to the most degree. I think like Jamal Crawford, I will agree, was like one of the purest hoopers. I mean, he kind of gets a lot of disrespect because when people bring up is it 50-point games, they're always disrespecting his name like he didn't deserve that 50-point game. But truth is, he's had that in him, but he's always been playing a bench role, averaging close to 20th season. Um, yeah, I mean, it's hard to say if he'd be a superstar. I think it would all depend on where he's situated. I think in a role that kind of requires him to score more often, I think he could be quite a pure scorer. But that's very circumstantial. I think if you threw him into 2K, like prime Jamal Crawford on a shit team, yeah, he's a superstar.
I will say though, I feel like my comparison to where he'd be at would be sort of an early James Harden, in that he's such an offensive firepower that with that and all the attention he's going to command, I feel like his playmaking would like develop a bit. But yeah, I think superstar, maybe a bit of a stretch, but I stand by my case just by the fact that Jamal Crawford, I think, is like this cult MVP. Lou Williams always called himself the underground GOAT. I think that as much as he's in that conversation, if he's the GOAT, Jamal Crawford's a god. But yeah, man, I was gonna say that last week, but I like the other one I had. But yeah, Jamal Crawford, man, certified hooper. All right, I'll pick the next one. I want to hear. Before we started recording, Ruben, I feel like he's got some heat, so I'll save him for last. Christian, let's hear your take, bro.
All right, this is a take that's brought to you by 5 minutes of thinking. But I think the Pistons are on the come up for next season. And I think when I say come up, I mean potential play-in team next year. Now, the reason I think this is because they are slowly developing some young stars. I mean, Cade Cunningham obviously came into the season late, and I think you could argue that they gained quite a few losses through that beginning portion of the season because they're also missing Jeremy Grant, keep in mind. Two of their players that I think are like pretty much their cornerstone players or their franchise in the later years to come. And considering they were both gone, and I'm not saying 14th by any stretch is really that impressive, but considering they were gone, I think they could at least be looking at the standings right now in the East. They could probably be competing for a 12th seed with the Knicks. That being said, I mean, I've been monitoring Sadiq Bey for the season. I think he's been developing into a well-rounded two-way player, and he definitely can create his own shot. I mean, Beef Stew, obviously, maybe a bit of a poser when it comes to being a tough guy, to be completely honest. But I think he's still got the heart. And I think they've been developing these role players for quite a bit on their team. And I will say they've kind of let go of some guys that I think they could have held on to, but they still have a lot of young talent. And I think it's going to take some sort of moves to maybe, make this take come true. But I do think they, at least in the East, from what I'm looking at in these standings, I think they have the most potential to be next up, besides the Pacers. But they had a big trade, so I didn't count them. That's my take.
Okay. I will say, I think on paper, they're looking very nice. I think especially if you're able to retain a guy like Marvin Bagley. I know, obviously, he gets a lot of drag in the fact that if we look at who's picked after him, you got Luka Doncic, and Trae Young. So obviously there you're obviously always going to look at him as the guy that got picked before two generational talents. That being said, I think he's pretty solid when he has the potential to put up 20 and 10 on like any given night if he really like has the chance to. But I think with that, a lot of it is hinged on the fact that Jeremy Grant wasn't available for a lot of the season, I feel, when he did get there. And with that being said, I feel like we've never really seen the Pistons operate at full health when, not necessarily that the season mattered, considering that there was, not to say that they didn't go into the season with the mentality that they weren't going to win, but by the time Jeremy Grant got back to like being healthy, they were already kind of like didn't even have a shooter's chance, I feel. So I feel that as much as I agree with your take in that it has the possibility to happen, I'd like to see them operating at full health with earlier in the season so that they're playing at their highest possible effort. I think with that though, Sadiq Bey I think is definitely developing into one of the premier players at his position. He's from Villanova, so he's got that he's got that in his veins. Mikal Bridges, Kyle Lowry, Josh Hart, all those guys are all guys that have carved out careers in the fact that they're grinders. And you add that into this 3-point shooting, looking very nice. Yeah, Rubes.
Yeah, I think I don't know if Detroit will be competing for any playoff contention in the coming years, in the next two, in my opinion. I think they have nice, solid pieces, but I think, as we've seen with some of these really good young teams, with when it comes to program building, you got to have those guys that have done it. You've got to have the experience. You've got to have good coaching. And I think they have elements of it. I just don't think they have all of it. So I think, do I think Dwayne Casey is the guy that'll lead them to a really good playoff positioning and develop a good culture and program there? He did it in Toronto. I haven't seen that in Detroit so far. I like Sadiq Bey. I like Cade Cunningham. Um, I don't know if I like Jeremy Grant on this team moving forward. I think that he's going to be a piece that's probably going to be talked a lot about a lot in the off season, and his name was pretty much ruffled around the feathers throughout the trade deadline. But Cade's legit. I think he is, you know, putting aside the rookie of the year conversation. I think he's the best player out of this draft class, and that's saying a lot considering how deep and how good this draft class is. I still think he's the best player, and there's a reason he was taken first overall. So, depending on how well he develops, I think you can jumpstart the progress and accelerate how far this team goes. So, I think it'll all be based on him. All the other parts are going to fall into place over time. But let's see how good this organization can bounce back, because, I mean, in the last 15 years, they haven't been very good at all. So, we'll see. Um, I guess I might as well just take the floor. All right, this is my take. The Dallas Mavericks will make the Western Conference Finals. Dallas Mavericks will make the Western Conference Finals. So if I'm not mistaken, if you guys can look this up for me and confirm, I believe they're third right now, right? I believe they're third.
They are actually fourth.
They are fourth right now, right? Okay, so they are fourth. But I believe they're only a game or two in front or back of the Warriors.
Yeah.
Yes, just one game back. Yeah.
Just one game back. Okay, so that puts a little stinker in my take. But if they are the third seed, I like their chances to get to the Western Conference Finals, and at that point anything can happen. Now, if I think that they have to run into the Phoenix Suns in the second round, I think that is more unlikely. However, when you have Luka Doncic on your team and how well they're playing and they're meshing offensively, and their team is actually, in fact, better defensively without Porzingis, I like their chances. And just like the Celtics are right now for the East, you're peaking at the right time. And more often than not, if you've got the best player on the floor for you on the court, that makes a huge difference. So depending on who fifth or sixth is going to be, Luka Doncic is one of the top players in the league. So I'll take my bet. I'll take my odds with him. If you go into the second round of the playoffs, whether it's the Memphis Grizzlies or the Phoenix Suns, Luka Doncic is the best player on the floor. So I'll take my odds with him. And again, just everything's falling into place. Like I said, I didn't think I'd ever say it about Jason Kidd. He has coached really well this season. He has coached really well this season. I think his schemes have been very good. He's been putting players in the right position to be successful. I think we also overlook how good Dinwiddie, Brunson, and Luka Doncic have been. And there have been often times that Jason Kidd has been running those three guard lineups with Finney Smith and Powell on the floor. They're also deep. I think they're underratedly deep. So I think they have all the pieces to make the Western Conference Finals. Um, and I would say the same thing about the Celtics, and the reason being is both teams are peaking at the right time, and they could arguably have the best player on the floor at any given night. So that's my take. Thoughts, fellas? Thoughts?
When you mentioned that they're deep, I had to look at their roster and holy fuck, they're deep. I think honestly, even if they're fourth seed, I like their chances against the Nets because I mean they have a matchup at every position. I feel obviously you can have the small guards guarding each other. Luca would have the Devin Booker assignment, and Dinwiddie being like a really big guard. Well, both of them are big guards, but either way, they can cover the three. Mikal Bridges doesn't really give that mismatch in the fact that he's still a little bit undersized. And yeah, I mean, the last Mavericks game I watched in full was that one where Dinwiddie soured Kevin Garnett's retirement ceremony. So I think if that's anything of a tempo setter, that's it. Now, I do think the fact that they're peaking at the right time is really helping them. And with that, I think that kind of soils the Warriors as well, in that, they're not really going into the playoffs with any cohesion, but bringing it back to the Mavs. Yeah, I mean, Luka the Don averaged basically 36 points last postseason run. Granted, it was only in the first round, but if you have that on top of how well they're playing now, they're definitely a scary team for sure. And they got the Canadian boy, Dwight Powell. So yeah, I agree. I wouldn't be surprised if it does happen.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you guys. I think the only real thing is carrying that kind of momentum into the playoffs because, I mean, every NBA player will say it. Bron said it at the beginning of the season, or was it Westbrook? Like, it don't matter where we are in position, it's about the playoffs.
Yeah, they can't even talk about it anymore.
Some shit like that. Some shit like that. I mean, all jokes aside, I think that is kind of a true sentiment about the playoffs. That this team is still. I mean, in my opinion, obviously they've been gaining their reps, but I still think there is some form of inexperience. Like I would say they're right up there with maybe like the Grizzlies, arguably in terms of experience. Um, so I do think it's like the matter of just keeping that kind of momentum going into the playoffs, and I think a run that I think you would want to compare it to or hope that they kind of go on is a run that's compared to that. Fuck, what was the? I forgot what season it was. Is it the season IT was playing with the Celtics still and Jason Tatum dunked on Braun? Like, I think that type of momentum run is what they're going to need. Really just playing with team cohesion because I think, star power wise, like, I'm not saying Brunson and Dinwiddie aren't stars. They definitely are rising up there, but Luca is their real superstar. Um, and they're going to have to really have those role players like come up to another level for the postseason. But I believe they can do it. They have a good probability for sure. The odds are good for them right now for sure.
Shoot, those are all some pretty solid takes, if I do say so. Alrighty. Shoot, with that, let's head on to the next section. So, We're talking superlatives. What does that mean? I'm gonna throw out a topic, and the boys got to give me an answer. Let's start off the bat here. So we're gonna go through our award predictions. Let's start off with let's go defensive player of the year. Who y'all got? While they're thinking, I'll throw out mine. So for me, as much as I want to go with the homer pick, I'm gonna say Giannis. But if I were to give kind of another one, it'd be Marcus Smart, just because he's the best defensive player on one of the best defenses in basketball. I'm tired of seeing big men. Yeah, I'm tired of seeing big men win this award. It's always like, who, like, for example, here, Jaren Jackson Jr. Leading the lead in blocks. Who gives a shit? He's 6'11", doesn't average double-digit rebounds. That ain't no fucking defensive player of the year. Marcus Smart is a guy who has changed the culture of the Boston Celtics. He has brought them back to that grittiness. He brings all of that every night. And man, if there's a guard that deserves to win it, being the last one since Gary Payton, it's him. As much as I love Drew Holiday, Marcus Smart just has that dog mentality to him that's unmatched.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with you there. I mean, and if you're looking at even odds right now, as of March 29th, based on Caesar Sportsbook, Marcus Smart is plus 150 in terms of winning it. And the Celtics are the number one defense in the league, if I'm not mistaken. So, and, they've done a really good job of that. The anchor, you have the anchor, Robert Williams, and then at the point of attack, the head of your snake is Marcus Smart, who has obviously been known as a really good defender. But I think this year, just overall, like, obviously it's a Defensive Player of the Year award, but offensively, I think he's become such an underrated playmaker and a shot maker and a shot creator for the rest of his team. And when he kind of took on that role of being like, okay, let me be the guy to put people in position, Boston really found their way. And he was able to be that glue guy in between the Jaylen Brown and the Jason Tatum. And then on the defensive end, when your point of attack, he's able to guard multiple positions despite how small he is at 6'3", 6'4", and his ability to be in the passing lanes. And one of the main things that I like to track in terms of really good defensive players is your ability to break up plays, your ability to break up schemes, and to change the tone of the game. And he's able to pick up half court, full court. He's able to trap players, and he's able to make a lot of things hard for certain situations. So, yeah, Marcus Smart would have my vote if I had a vote. So, and I don't think it's very close right now. Bam Adebayo is trying to make a bit of a conversation, but he hasn't been very consistent all season long. And honestly, if I had to choose a runner-up, it would have been Giannis. I think Giannis has been having an underrated defensive season this year.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really make any disagreements, to be honest. Not even because I'm somewhat biased to the Boston Celtics, but I think Ruben makes a really good point of him being a glue guy. Like, I wouldn't say, it's completely paralleled to Kyle Lowry by any means, but I do think he is kind of showing flashes of being that type of player for the Boston Celtics, in a sense where, he's not going to give you 20 points every night, but he can. But it's more of the fact that, he is going to get you stops on either side of the floor, and then he is, going to be able to dish it out and, like, keep everyone in check and be kind of a, I mean, I actually am not entirely sure if there are captains in basketball. I've never even thought of this. To my knowledge, I feel like there is, like, obviously leadership in basketball. I just don't know if they have, like, some sort of... Anyways, I do think he shows, like, very captain-like qualities. And I think that shows a lot through his defense and his kind of toughness on the floor. And, the stats kind of back it up, too. Almost averaging 2 steals per game this season. That's pretty fucking insane. Yeah, I don't really think there is anyone else out there, like, Rudy Gobert sits in the paint. It's just not a comparison, you know.
Yeah, shoot. I mean, Giannis. No, no, okay. That was very solid. That was very solid. I love Bam too, but I feel like he's missed too much time to really be in that discussion with the thumb and everything. But okay, most improved. Who y'all got?
Easy. It's an easy one for me. It's yeah, it's definitely going to be John Moran for me. Um, yeah, it's going to be John Moran for me. I think I don't know if anyone would disagree. I mean, it's also has because this is his. If I'm not mistaken, is this his fourth year in the league?
Third, I think. Isn't it?
It's third, right?
Yeah.
So typically, I wouldn't give it to a third year player because your first 3 or 4 years in the league, you're in your rookie contract. You're kind of expected to have some natural progression. Um, but then I look back and say, well, Pascal did win Most Improved in his third year of the league as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Giannis did the same thing. I think Giannis was drafted in 2014, yes?
Oh, 2013.
2013. Okay, so his fourth year was when he won it. But yeah, John Morant's an easy decision. I mean, guys, he's been playing at an MVP caliber level when he's healthy. Um, so I don't think there's much of a conversation there to be had. But like, I know that there are people who are like, it's almost an outlier. You can't really give it to John Morant just because he's been so good that you would even place him in the MVP conversation. So even if that were to happen, I think this is probably the closest award, and well, aside from the MVP vote, but Darius Garland, DeJounte Murray, Miles Bridges, Desmond Bain. Like, that's a good group of guys that you're looking at that are like, these are all all-star caliber players who could easily win the award. So, I mean, if I had to choose someone that's not John Morant, it would probably be DeJounte Murray over Darius Garland. Because, I mean, DeJounte Murray, even though he made the All-Star team at the skin of his teeth, right, through an injury, the dude has been averaging close to a triple-double every year. I mean, throughout every game, throughout the season, right? So I think like statistically, he's been having a better season than Darius Garland. Darius Garland has the winning and the impact on his side, but if we're talking about most improved, like the jump has been pretty significant for a guy like Dejounte Murray. But yeah, if we're pulling it back, taking away all the outliers, John Morant's probably going to win this one.
Yeah. DJ, do you want?
Oh no, no, go ahead, my bad.
Oh, all good, all good. Um, yeah. I mean, I do think, unfortunately, not unfortunately, I mean, he deserves it in most ways. John Morant is probably going to win this. He's just got the media on his side right now. Like, this dude, in my opinion, and just in my opinion, right now, is looking like the second coming of Derrick Rose. But I think beyond that, if I were to give this award or have my vote placed in, I do think DeJounte Murray deserves it. Um, I just think, like, based on the season he's having, he's really improved almost every stat category. And I think, just looking at basketball reference right now, it's kind of weird to believe that he's averaging 2 steals a game, like straight on the dot. Um, yeah, he's averaging 21, 8, and 9, or 21. Yeah, close to a triple double practically. Like Ruben had mentioned, and I mean, his splits are really not all too bad. And I mean, I've been watching more of him because he's been like my fantasy goat this year. Um, but yeah, I don't know, man. I think he has kind of the signs of the most improved player, but I think it's just unfortunate that he's stuck in a year where John Morant is exploding, because I think either of them could win it, but it's probably John Morant.
So, I'm not gonna lie, I completely forgot about John just because I feel like last year he had a pretty solid year, and then this year is kind of like blossomed even more. But that being said, I originally had Miles Bridges, but I think I'm gonna double down with Christian and say DeJounte Murray, just because when DeJounte Murray came into the league, he had one of those iffy things with a lot of prospects where it's like, well, if this catches up with this, then he's the second coming. You know, a lot of people are like that. Where who's like a player I can think of? Where a lot of people are like, if this guy gets a shot, like Ben Simmons, he's gonna be a GOAT. Obviously, we see how that turned out. Ben is still a solid player, but DeJounte Murray is really putting it together, I feel. I mean, with him being 25 and finally getting his first All-Star bid, I think 21, 8, and 9 with 2 steals is fucking insane, first of all. And I think just the fact that, yeah, he's always been one of the premier defensive guards in the league. Like, he's definitely, in my opinion, not even definitely, 100%. If it doesn't happen, it's like if Scotty Barnes doesn't win Rookie of the Year. If he doesn't get an all-defensive team, that's probably one of the biggest snubs of all time. But, yeah, I think, again, I feel Jaws kind of outgrew it in the sense that if he's in, yeah, he'll probably get outpaced with that. But, yeah, originally I had Miles Bridges just because I feel like he's shown an ability that is more than be able to catch lobs. I think he's a clear number 2 to LaMelo. And I think if things go well, they can grow into one of the better duos. If they decide to give him the bag, considering that. I think that's one of the nice stories of this year, in that he rejected a pretty decent contract to now where he's played himself into some nice money, I feel. So I feel like if we were to kind of go with the guys that haven't blossomed, you know, haven't over blossomed in that, I feel that Miles Bridges would win it. But if we were to break it down with guys that have blossomed into like superstardom in a sense, I had to go with DeJounte Murray, just because if Jaw's in the MVP conversation, you know.
Crazy that we penalize that. We almost penalized
Ja it's
for
dumb, but I feel like...
But it's I understand, though. Like, I can see why the perspective is that way, because Ja has been playing at an MVP level, and quite frankly, if you look at that group, the gap between how good Ja is and DeJounte, Darius, Miles, and these guys have been is like Ja's impacted winning to the point that they look like they could win an NBA championship this year.
Exactly.
Last year they made the playoffs through the play-in. Am I not, like, I'm pretty sure, right?
Yeah, they beat Golden State in the second game because they went in as like a 9th or 10th seed, I think.
So it's like they went from a play-in team to being a championship contender in 1 year. And in fact, they lost a better player in Jonas Valanciunas and got Steven Adams. Well, if you look at, you could granted, like, Steven Adams seems like he's a much better fit, and Jaren Jackson Jr. is actually healthy this year. So obviously he's a big impact player and could have been an all-star player this year, but it's like, dude, Ja Morant, his game has taken heights that we haven't seen, at least from year to year. And he was so good last year too, like you said, but second-year players rarely ever get considered for that because the expectation is you're supposed to get better. But it's crazy. I'm just thinking about, like, dude, we're penalizing this guy for being way too good. That he's not even worth the award. It's like, but I understand why. But I don't know.
Yeah, I think crazy. It's like an unwritten rule, and it'll be an unwritten thing where it's like, it'll always be, you know, it's like the Lamicki Championship, where whoever gets it, we always know there's like a big asterisk there.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you just can't win Most Improved and MVP.
Yeah, you can't be too good. You gotta be like
you can't be in the running. You just can't be in the running for both. Like that's like owning like a Ferrari in your garage and then driving a Prius as your daily. Like that's just it's just like, why do you like, dude, just fucking own a Tesla and don't own either of those two cars. Like there's got to be a middle ground, and the middle ground is him only going for MVP. He cannot be Most Improved if he's in the MVP race.
That's hilarious.
That is a perfect analogy, I feel. That being said, Rookie of the Year runner-up, who we all got? Because obviously, we all know it's going to be Scotty. If it's not Scotty, we all know they're all sucking that Cleveland cock. All I'm saying.
Well, I mean, honestly, think about it, though. Like, there's no reason why Evan Mobley still can't win it. Even though, like, we're all pretty set high on him being, like, Rookie of the Year for sure. And like the latest run pretty much cements like what we're thinking of. But Evan Mobley has had one of the best defensive ratings for a rookie in a really long time. He has also very similar stat line to Scotty, and at the beginning of the year, he was impacting winning as much as Scotty was. But obviously, we covered it last week, saying like a lot of that was overrated. Now you see when Jared Allen went down, their defensive rating and everything else dropped, and look where they are now in terms of impact. So yeah, there's no reason Evan Mobley still can't win it because there was also a stretch where he was just so much better than every other rookie also. So that kind of evens it out, but yeah, Evan Mobley's runner up. Evan Mobley's runner up. It's pretty much Cade, Evan Mobley. You know, those two are runner ups at this point.
Yeah. I think like it's tough to think about because you kind of think about where they were at certain points in the season because they both play around, I think, arguably talented rosters. And I think the fact that Scotty has been around like more or less a healthy Toronto team and has still been like producing in the way he has kind of speaks to how consistent he has been. Whereas, I'm not saying really Mobley's had any sort of drop off, but he has been more exposed since like most of the injuries have happened in Cleveland. And I just think that I personally seen at least Scotty like kind of continue to develop through the season, and it's more evident, and it's showing through obviously with the records as well. Um, so it's tough. I wouldn't say like that take is necessarily like prominent, but I think a lot of like, for example, Mobley's success does come from the fact that he did play off Jared Allen. That he does have like Darius Garland, who is one of the best assisting point guards, not even in just the East, but in the NBA in general. So I think for Scotty, his kind of presence on the Toronto Raptors it is more individualistic, and for that reason, I think he deserves the award bet more. Um, but you know what? I mean, like at the end of the day, like uh, the executives that have this vote probably don't give a shit about thinking about that shit. It's probably for the fans. So who gives a fuck about my take?
We do. But for me, I'm gonna kind of go to left field here. This has been one of my favorite rookies to watch. Franz Wagner. I think the only reason that he wouldn't win is obviously because of the record. But when you look at like his numbers, pretty nice. I mean, when it comes to total scoring, so not points per game, because I think Cade leads him in that right now. But this Franz is fourth. He's holding that like scoring total number record, or in terms of this year's class, by over 100 points. And with that, he's fourth in scoring, but he also has the best splits out of that top four. 47, 36, and 86. Those are super solid splits. Not even just for a rookie, but overall. And I think that like much like Scotty, he's built for this next generation of positionless basketball in that, he's 6'9", but obviously he's shown the ability to handle the ball. He's shown the ability to be a 3-level scorer. And I think, in my opinion, actually not even in my opinion, I think it'd be crazy not to think that he's the best rookie on that team right now. Everybody was like, Jalen Suggs this, Jalen Suggs that. Even I was like, Jalen Suggs. I mean, watching his tournament run, that was some special shit. But Franz Wagner, I think, you can't really call him a steal because he was like top 10 pick, but in terms of the top of the draft, I think he's one of the guys that doesn't get enough love in my opinion. But I understand why, just because Magic suck ass. But with that being said, we only got one more award to discuss before we get to the fun superlatives. MVP. Now, obviously for me, y'all know who I got, but I would love to hear who y'all think first before I try to defend, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, I think for me it's an easy choice. I mean, it's pretty close overall. I think The reason I say easy because I've kind of fallen into the media trap for Joel Embiid because how dominant he's been this year from beginning to end. He's just been unguardable. He's anchored the team's defense. So, which is almost a very similar story to what Jokic and both Giannis have done, and they've also both put up historically good numbers again. And that shows you just how good the level of the playing field is in terms of the elite talent in the league. And, part of me is also like, yeah, there's a voter fatigue, like giving it to Jokic again, I'm not sure. Giving it to Giannis again, I'm not sure. So, I mean, if you're looking at the records right now, the Sixers are just slightly have the advantage in the Eastern Conference. The Nuggets have also been without their two best players, so that's also like something to look at in terms of the award and how good Jokic has been, and yet they're still able to compete at a high level. But yeah, I'd have to give the slight edge to Joel just because of the fact that for me, if when I look at Giannis and the Bucks, Giannis has been really good this year. I just don't think they've, admittedly, and this is fine because we saw. Actually, no. Like we've seen this with teams who win their championship, as they come back next season with looking into the year saying, okay, we're preparing to defend it in the playoffs. The regular season is typically a wash for them, so we're seeing a bit of that. Jokic just won it, but they're not having the same success as they did last year, and part of that is not having their best players. So an argument can be made. So it's like me going back and forth and just flipping the oranges and apples and all that stuff, and any argument can be made for these guys. I just think Joel has a slight edge with just how good he's been, and if I'm not mistaken, is he leading the league right now in scoring? I think he is the scoring leader, right? It was between him, LeBron, and I want to say
So
was it Kevin
what
Durant?
I'm looking at, well, KD's not eligible because he missed too many games.
Right.
What I'm looking at right now says LeBron's the scoring leader, but it's like,
He has to play 2 games though, right?
yeah, so, which I don't think he'll probably do. But so I
Yeah.
guess yeah,
So
technically Joel's leading the league in scoring right now. I'd say.
so if he's well, I mean, if he does if he does get the scoring title, that only adds to his conversation to the argument of him winning the MVP, alongside the fact he's been dominant on both ends this year, with quite frankly a lot less help. Until James Harden really arrived at the deadline, and also James didn't play for the first couple games, so there's a lot of outliers here again. But I'll have to lean slightly towards the big guy in Philly. Long-winded answer, sorry about that, but I know that it's this is a very good MVP race, and I think it deserves the time that it gets when trying to argue for these guys. I don't know. What do you guys think, Chen? What do you think?
To be honest, I wouldn't say I'm in complete disagreement, but I do think my MVP is Jokic. Um, and it's hard to say, from a realistic point of view, if he's actually going to win it. Um, just because there is a lot of things to consider. And it definitely depends. I think when you're talking about opinions like this, where you kind of stand in what an MVP means. Because if you're going based off of like most valuable player just in the league, um, and that's based off, like where their team stands, I do think Joel or Giannis is probably a more probable choice. Um, I mean, the sixth seed is just not a very impressive feat when you really think of things. That being said, I'm more of a person who kind of considers like also the statistics of a player. Um, and I don't know where I saw this because honestly, basketball on Instagram you can run into so many statistic pages. But I was seeing at least as of a few days ago that if you really look at statistics, Jokic is leading a good majority of them. Um, I mean, advanced stats aren't everything, but I know from what I was reading that he has only the only 26, 13, and 6 plus season ever on his specific shooting splits. Um, and I don't know. I think he's just like too dominant of a player on the floor. Um, I think if you were to throw Will Barton and Aaron Gordon into the fire of another team and surround them around another star, I just don't think you would get those types of results out of another player, like any player in the league for that matter. Um, but that's all circumstantial. I just think Jokic is the most dominant player in the NBA right now. Um, but maybe not the most influential this season. So, in as a result, my MVP is Giannis because Giannis is the most handsome out of the three.
That's a perfect reason. No, I feel like with Jokic, I feel it's a lot like with LeBron season where it's arguably one of the best of their careers, but it's just wasted on the fact that they never had their full team around them. I think if Jokic were to win it at 6, that'd be kind of, I don't want to say the word whack, because if he gets it, like, it'll be well deserved. But I think it's a lot like how Bradley Beal didn't make the All-Star game when he averaged 30. It's not the same like scale, but the sentiments remain the same. But for me, obviously, I have Ben Simmons. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I think, is undoubtedly the MVP. In my opinion, I don't think there's any player in basketball that is the MVP on both sides of the court as much as Giannis is. Giannis is amazing as a primary defender. We've seen that on Joel, where he blocked like that potentially game-winning shot, and we've seen that he's one of the best help defenders in the league. And we've seen on the offense where there's literally been defensive schemes that had to be dreamed up just to try to stop him. Obviously with the wall, and we've seen how the 3-point, they're still a little shaky, but he's shooting a lot more confidently. I think looking at last year, I think a lot of them were kind of chucked up, and even in his MVP seasons, not a lot of them I felt were taken confidently as much as they are this season. And man, the fact that he's in the scoring title race based on the fact that's not even his main thing on the team is crazy. Now, granted, I do think the media is definitely on Joel's side, so I will say that if Giannis were to lose, that'd probably be the main thing. But yeah, man, I just think Giannis is the MVP on both sides of the ball. He's in contention for Defensive Player of the Year as well. So I think that alone, not necessarily that alone, but that contributed a lot to the reason why I think he's MVP, because we're talking about most valuable player. The most valuable player is the best player in basketball. Basketball is a two-ended game, and the fact that he's in contention for both the MVPs of those like sides, I think speaks volumes. But whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, I do gotta add though, like even though the Bucks have had some significant injuries throughout the year, like Joel has also had, I would even argue that he's had significantly less help than, I think he's had significantly less help than even the Nuggets do. Because if you're looking at that roster prior to the James Harden trade, like their next best player was Tobias Harris. I mean, Tobias Harris, Aaron Gordon, they're kind of in the same boat, right? Like Tobias has had some good seasons. Like let's not get it twisted. Like I think arguably he's a better player than Aaron Gordon, but in terms of the value and what they do for that team, Tyrese Maxey is a nice young player. I mean, I think Joel's had to do a lot this year with a lot less help than a lot of these teams in the elite set of contenders. And so when you don't have that luxury to sit back and be like, okay, well, Tobias Harris is about to take over the game. And granted, Ben Simmons, their next All-Star, was sitting, and they've had all these internal issues going on. I think I that's the only reason why I'm giving him the edge and why I feel like I have to give Joel the edge over the other two is because, well, yeah, I think Giannis is having a better overall season, and Jokic statistically and then on the advanced side is better than the three. What Joel has, at least with narrative wise and just from a basketball perspective, when you're on the court with a collection of guys that aren't necessarily all-star talents, but you're carrying them into some sort of championship contention. Like that's that. I think I have to give that the edge at this. Like I'm typically the guy who likes to mix advanced stats and the eye test, but I'll have to weigh myself towards the eye test this time around just for Joel. But I can see the arguments for all three, and so for me, it's not really sitting here disagreeing with you guys. It's
Hmm.
just that's the only reason why I'm weighing into Joel. But like I said, Joel, I think Giannis is having the best season. I think Jokic statistically is having another historical amazing season that no big man has probably ever had. So it's like it's you're throwing it up and you're just going all right, whatever
Yeah,
at this point.
whatever happens, happens. I will say though, notice how ain't none of those motherfuckers are Americans. I think it's crazy. It's a crazy testament to where basketball is at now, to where some of the best players aren't even American now. Actually, the best players aren't American, in my opinion. But yeah, no. With that though, those are our like award predictions. But now let's get into some fun little superlatives. So, showed flashes. Who would y'all say showed some flashes? So this isn't necessarily a player that broke out as heavy as Jaw, but who are some guys that gave a little bit of the eye test and we're like, ooh. For me, it's Anthony Simons. I think what he was able to do without Dame when he was handed the keys to the offense. I think when you make the media and a lot of viewers question if should we give up a generational talent and just give this player the keys, you're doing something right. 23 points and 6 assists on 46, 42, and 87 splits. Pretty solid if you ask me. But yeah, y'all got any for showing some flashes?
Yeah, mine would be OG Anunoby. He's played 47 games this year, and but when he opened the season without Siakam, OG was looking like he was on the trajectory to be an all-star this year. I mean, at one point he was averaging 20 points, and he was the number one option offensively. And so he and Fred kept the team afloat, but he hasn't been able to stay healthy, which is the really tough part. And with Siakam back and Scotty taking another step in his development, almost every month he's just gotten better. OG has been hit by something, so he hasn't really been able to develop into that guy that we all thought he would. But he showed flashes. Like he showed that Tatum-esque bag that we were all hoping that he would get, at least for Raptors fans. He developed a lot of good on ball, basketball movements, and I think that's important for him to develop that bag so he can continue to be like another big scoring option for the team. But yeah, hopefully he can stay healthy and we can get a longer period of those flashes.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's kind of a weird take, because I am looking at his stats now, and to be honest, like it's not all that impressive when you compare. But I think for me, it's probably Anthony Edwards, and I think it's mostly due to the fact that you can see the Minnesota Timberwolves starting to gel a lot better, and I think he's starting to understand like his role in terms of winning games. But his stats still did improve from his previous season, pretty much across the board in a minor way, I will say. But he did have some huge games during the season in which they were contributing to winning. And I think one of the bigger things for me that I noticed for him was his offensive uptake. I mean, just based off of, or sorry, not offensive, defensive uptake. Um, but I mean, his steals have went up from 1.1 to 1.5. Um, he is averaging more turnovers, but that's, who cares? Um, Beyond that, I just think like he is kind of, you know, he will look like he is second to LaMelo for a few years to come. But I think he is going to keep developing into a winning player, especially given how Minnesota's season is looking now. And I think based on the fact that his stats are improving, I think he's going to explode next year. Yeah.
That's a fair assumption. Okay. in light of time, we're gonna do a couple more, but I'm just gonna throw this out there. Who would you guys say is like one piece away from really making some noise?
Utah. I was gonna say Utah, but I think they're gonna break it up. I think it's Denver once they get their two young guys back, and then I think they'll have some assets to work around. I think if they were to add another star player, I think, or even just simply another All Star, I think that's the team that could, actually contend for a championship and be in that top three.
I feel like on paper though, if their team's healthy, I feel like they're already contenders. For me, I have the Hawks, who obviously had a big fall from grace from their season last year. And I think it just bases on the fact that I think the Hawks need another guy who can take pressure off of Trey. Specifically, another like a big two guard, because as good as Bogdanovich is, I think I like him better as in the bench unit. Now, if I'm thinking who, obviously I don't think he'd move just based off the fact of how well he's gelling right now. But if you get a bigger guard like a Spencer Dinwiddie on that lineup, I think the Hawks look a lot better. Obviously able to better hide Trey on the defensive end. And I think that and the injury bug kind of screwed him a bit. But I think the Hawks, I don't think you necessarily break it up. Definitely. I don't think you trade away John Collins. But, actually, that's what they did be said. Because, Onyeka Okongwu, I think, showed some bright flashes as well. But if there's a team that I think is a piece away or a couple, I think the Hawks are in that conversation.
I mean, this is definitely just, I think more of a adding fuel to the fire than anything. But I do think the Boston Celtics are one piece away. And I think that's more in the fact that I think for them to have pretty much solid 1 through 5, I think Al Horford or Grant Williams for the future is not it. Um, at least in the 4/5 positional area for them. Obviously, Robert Williams is a shoe in for being one of their bigs for the future. I just think, I mean, Al feels like he's been in the league since the 40s or something. I mean, this dude's name has been on every fucking team at this point. And Grant Williams is definitely an underrated player, but I don't think he is going to, fit into a starting role ever for this team.
You don't think he's the new PJ Tucker?
I don't think they need a PJ Tucker on this team, to be honest. I don't think that's what they need. I don't know. I don't really know. I don't know who that player is. And maybe they don't need it. But I think if it was one player to just put him over the top, it'd be someone to at least fill that position in some way.
Okay. All right. Second to last one. Who do you guys think is going to be an all-star next year? Who do you think is going to make that jump that, Ja, Darius Garland, DeJounte Murray, LaMelo, all those guys have made this year? Who do you think's on the precipice of that for next year?
Bobby Portis.
Oh, Bobby Portis. Yeah, okay. All right then. Okay. If it just means who wasn't an all-star this year, who can be an all-star next year, my choice is pretty easy. It'll be Pascal Siakam. I think he'll be back in the playoff contention because he's one of only four players right now averaging 21, 8 and 5 or something like that right now. I think the guys that are doing that are Jokic, Giannis, LeBron, and Luka, if I'm not mistaken. So, anyways, I think Pascal is playing at an all NBA level, and I think that's going to carry into next season. There's no way that he's not going to make an all-star team. The only reason he didn't make it this year is just because he missed the first 13 games with the shoulder surgery. So I think he's back next year. If I'm going to look at another player who I think can make an all-star team, but hasn't yet, it's probably going to be Jamal Murray. I think Jamal Murray, if he comes back healthy, I think he could be in that conversation for an all-star. and I think he can make that jump. I mean, he's already been playing at an All-Star caliber level. It's just really hard for guards to make the All-Star team, especially in the West. So, but I think next year's his year.
Mm. I think for me, this is probably not like the first player that came to mind, and I don't know how realistic this is, but I'd really like to see Shea in the All Star game one day, and maybe it is the next year, all depending on the OKC plan. Maybe it's another bottom feed season, but I think he is talented enough to be up there. It's really more so the fact that he's playing for a bottom feeder team. So I think until that changes, obviously it's different. Anthony Edwards would be dope too. I think he is definitely capable, and it probably could happen more likely than Shea. Now that I think of it. Yeah.
Nice. For me, I have to go with the person that I think is probably going to be looked at as one of those craziest trades, just based on the fact of how good he's going to be. It's Tyrese Halliburton. I mean, he's averaging 20 and 10, and there are probably I've looked this up before. I think there are maybe like four, like only. It's definitely a single digit number of guys who have averaged 20 and 10. Kevin Johnson's one of them, but nah. I think Tyrese Halliburton with a full season with the Pacers, getting that cohesion down. Hopefully, if he doesn't get traded, having his big Miles Turner there. I think Tyrese Halliburton has the potential to potentially make an All-Star season or especially have an All-Star season next year. If he's already continuing these numbers, I think without a shadow of doubt he will. But with that, we have come to our last one. Now, granted, the season's not necessarily over, but we have had a lot of cool moments. I don't want to name them because I don't want to give you guys any ideas already. But what would you guys say has been the best moment of this season?
Honestly, mine is pretty dumb, but
Go ahead.
it's probably these last few days where people have been making memes about the Lakers not making the playoffs. I think this has been it's been so entertaining. And I think it's entertaining, not even from a jokes perspective, but obviously this is more than a moment. But you looked at the beginning of the season, you heard all the shit talk from Braun and Russell Westbrook, from all the guys on the Lakers for that matter. Um, you saw those predictions about the Nets being at the top and the Lakers being at the top. All those Photoshop pictures of them being in the finals together. Like, it's so nice and refreshing to see all this fucking shit burn in a dumpster fire and see all these unlikely teams in the playoffs, because it warms my heart so much to know that LeBron is not the GOAT. Anyways, next take.
Oh man, Magic. Did you like the Lakers this year? Okay, got you, bro. I got two. Number one is probably the NBA 75 ceremony where everyone was together in Cleveland. That was super dope, bro. Like honestly, Mike at the end coming up, standing in the middle, seeing the Celtics all together, Mike and LeBron. I mean, that was so cool, and then the little speech that Ja, Luca, and Devin and those guys gave at the end as well to welcome them in. Seeing our current players walk in, seeing Melo and Dame and LeBron, just seeing those guys amongst the greats was just so awesome. And then the second one is probably for me, um, Kyle coming back to Toronto. Like that was just super heartwarming. I don't think we've had a more powerful moment this year in terms of just fan love for the player and just appreciation for a player that's done so much for a franchise. So yeah, those are two of my favorite moments of the year.
Mine's a bit of a cop out now. I'm not gonna lie. I'm happy Ruben chose some senti shit because Christian just started off with the with the roasting. For me, I think my favorite moment And I do say this because it's a bit of a part one in my opinion. Aside from the Bucks getting their ring, which obviously that's how everyone was pointing to, that's definitely up there. That's a thing of its own. But for me, it's Clay's comeback. You know, 1,000+ days with not being in basketball. I mean, it's not even like his first game. He was like stinking it up. He almost had 20. And with that, I think it was a beautiful moment for me because I got to share it with my family. You know, my mom, if y'all don't know, super duper big Golden State fan. Not only that, Clay is her favorite player on that team. And I think seeing him come back, like, it's only good. It's only a good thing for basketball because Klay Thompson is undoubtedly, in my opinion, he was probably the most snubbed for the NBA 75. But with that, I say it's a part one because nobody's expecting him to come back into this all-star form. And, you know, granted, there's been flashes of that. But next season, coming in with this ability and this confidence that he's back, I think Klay Thompson makes some serious noise next year. But with that, that has been another episode of the Blacktop Podcast. We appreciate y'all tuning in as always. Boys, you got anything to say before we knock things out here?
Magic. Do you think Russell Westbrook was a good move over DeMar DeRozan to the Lakers? Okay, gotcha, bro. All right. No, that's it. That's it. I hope you guys, Lakers fans, enjoy Cancun, and I'm very excited for the playoffs and the play-in tournament next season and get to enjoy that with two of my favorite fellas. So, looking forward to that. And thank you guys for tuning in and continue to follow us. Thank you for your support. We love you guys.
Chin?
Yeah, I got absolutely nothing. Shout out Lil B. Based on.
Real shit. All right, before that, though, this is for the Lakers fans. Coming close. Cancun on 3! Nah, but real though, stay safe, stay blessed. We will see y'all soon. Take care.
Peace.